Hello, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of 415 Stories. I'm your co host, Taha. I am extra excited today just because we do have an incredible guest with us today. His new venture is doing really interesting changes in the Web3 and NFT world. I'm going to introduce him in a second, but before we do that, Tarkan, how are you doing today?
Thank you, Zaha. I'm doing fine, working on my startup, and I'm really excited to have Justin here because we are friends for more than 7 years. I guess we met in Istanbul 7, 8 years ago, and Justin also invested in my startup. He is my board member, and Justin is someone that I follow on internet and learn from him a lot through these hardships. Where I read his posts and I was really learning a lot from him. So, welcome, Justin. I'm excited to have you here.
Hey, Tarkan. Good to see you as always. It's so nice to see you. And Taha, thanks for having me. It's just, yeah, it's fun to have a conversation. It's always good to see you, Tarkan.
Awesome, Justin. Pleasure to have you here. So, you launched Fractal, and there are, I guess, now more than 100,000 people on the community. And as you mentioned, your focus on Fractal is to become the best place to buy and sell NFTs online. What kind of problems you see today in the NFT world that you are aiming to fix with Fractal?
The NFT world is really, really new, and NFTs for games are also very new. What we see is um, I think this is going to be a huge wave in gaming, though. Like, this is the next business model of gaming. Kind of like free to play was a business model that started, over 10 years ago, and then how now has become the dominant model in gaming. So what we think is going to happen is, the idea of there being durable NFT assets of games, like the things that you earn in games, the magic swords and race cars and characters. They're all going to be assets that people can trade and can have like real ownership of. And from there, these people are going to like have and participate in real economies that are built on top of games. That's kind of the future that I'm really excited about. But in the that has yet to happen. Right now, we're in really early days, and so I think right now there's this huge discovery problem. Where do people find games? How do they decide which games to participate in, to buy the NFTs of? And that's the problem we're trying to solve. Is really be a channel through which players discover games and then buy and sell the NFTs.
Awesome. And as you're looking at the NFTs, adaptation in the world, where do you see ourselves in this adaptation curve, let's say?
Yeah, I think we're really, really early days right now. So, it's been, Tarkan's been part of one of these teams, like building this company called Cave World. I think today we're in this like, super, super early stage where most of the games haven't even shipped yet. They're building in public with their communities, but they're still like ideas. And so what we're going to see, I think, in the next 6 to 12 months is a huge number of blockchain based games shipping and delivering games to players, and that's going to be like really exciting.
Just because of this, hype of NFTs, I guess there are lots of new games are launching on the blockchain. When you look at all these games, what are the ones that really stood up for you? What are the things that you look for in the project that you say, yeah, these guys are doing well?
Yeah, so we're looking for like, what's the background of these people who are creating these games? Like, a lot of people are coming over from gaming companies, that are like traditional gaming companies like a Riot or EA. And like, are these people going to be able to create and ship a game? And then there's also, with the blockchain side, it's like, are they able to build a community? It's really important in Web3 to like have a community that is, helping you, participating in the kind of creation of your product. And I think that's another kind of cornerstone aspect. So like, really trying to evaluate, are these people like able to build a game? Are they able to build a community? Those are kind of the most important things.
Yeah, actually, when I get into the NFT world, especially I'm helping K world, when I get into the community, that's totally different from the normal startup life. I mean, in startups, we are very connected with our team. We work hard with investors, exactly right. But here, the community is kind of part of the company, and that's really exciting for me because it's the investment part also totally different. So actually, Justin, what I see in this Web3 world, the company management is becoming different as well. What do you think? What these startups, I call them startups still, what they need to do? Can you tell the differences with the Web 2 and the Web 3 startups?
Yeah, I think with these new startups, like with these new projects, it's much more community oriented, and there's a lot. They're very decentralized. There's people all over the world. Oftentimes, people are working on the project. Sometimes in it's not only just full time people. Like oftentimes there are people working on the project in some sort of part time capacity. It's much more like internet native in terms of as a way to run the company, because all these things are like digital only assets. It'd be really hard to run a company like Scotty like that, right? But for these, kind of online companies, it's like these Web3 projects, it's much easier.
Justin, okay, from this NFT and Web3 world, I want to ask something. Actually, you are a parent, you are investing, and you have now Fractal, you have podcast. How you manage all of these, and how you can keep your habits doing in this period? So how you manage your day?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I always like focus, I always start my day by trying to do my habits, right? My healthy habits that I'm working on. So like my gratitude journal, I work out, I meditate. I try to do those things at the beginning of the day. And then it's just really a matter of prioritization. I'm always trying to figure out what's the most important thing to do during the day. It's often, it changes every day, so, I just kind of like make lists and then prioritize and then just work off those lists. It's a pretty simple system. I'm a very list based person.
One of my questions again about habits, because I read your small blog post about happiness, how to be happy, and there were 7 steps there. One of them was gratitude journal, and as far as I know, you also read books continuously. I try to follow as much as I can. How you decide to read a book? How much time you spend? How much books you read? And what is the one book that you think everyone should read?
There's this book called The Untethered Soul. That's like one of my favorite books. That kind of introduces a lot of like, I guess, Eastern philosophy to the West, like a Western audience. And yeah, I think it's an incredibly beautiful book. I won't spoil it. It's pretty short. You can read it in an afternoon. I definitely recommend it. It's one of my favorites.
Actually, I get that advice from you a few years ago. I guess I read this book and I listened half of it I was reading. That was amazing, because for the first time I realized that Monkey Mind, which was talking in my head, he was mentioning it a lot, and yeah, that book is amazing. I really like that as well.
Actually,
Yeah.
that book was the first book that Tarkan recommended me to. I mean, this is really interesting. So,
Oh wow.
Justin,
Well,
you describe in your Twitter bio, you say that from the bottom to the top and back again. So, as you know, I think everyone knows you went through this journey, which is really interesting to hear about. And I want to ask you something about this journey. So I believe there are really incredible learnings there, and I know that it's a wide topic. But what was the lessons that you learned the hard way that that is really easy to understand at the first sight, but it's really hard to gain as a habit and really embody it.
so I started a company, like my last company. It was like we raised a lot of money, $75 million. It was, and then it didn't work, and we ended up shutting down the company. And so there were a lot of lessons from that, right? There were a lot of things we did wrong. I mean, happy to go into as many as you want, but like one of them is, you should really only build stuff that you really want to dive into the product on. So in this case with Atrium, my last company, it was legal tech. I like thought it was a really good business idea, but it probably wasn't my core area of passion. And so, like I was very mercenary about it, and I think that like was not a great fit for me. Another thing was like in the beginning, I think you really want to keep the team small and moving fast. And I think I had raised a lot of money, so like hired a lot of people really quickly, and I don't think that was exactly the right move. Keeping it as lean as possible for as long as possible, I think is really important when you're creating that DNA of a startup, because you're always going to have entropy of like, things are going to get more efficient and move slowly over time. So you like need to start with like, the kind of like, you need like the big bang, right? Like in the beginning to like catalyze getting product market fit and like building a really great company. And then only after that can you really start layering on hiring and building infrastructure. If you don't have that product market fit in the beginning, then nothing else is going to matter, you know? And so I probably didn't spend enough time focused on that.
So I read somewhere it is like product, market, and founder fit. It's like they are pronouncing three of them now. I read a few times. So as far as I understand, it was did it have product market fit or not founder fit? I mean, maybe it had a product market fit but not a founder fit.
I think there was like not the right founder fit, but I mean, there was also like, I mean, there were some specifics around the product itself too. Like we were building technology to help lawyers be more efficient, but we didn't really identify, I think, whether our true customer was the clients themselves or the lawyers. And I think you always have to figure out who's your customer. Like, are you really building for lawyers to make lawyers happier, or are you building for clients to make clients happier? I think we were trying to do both, and we kind of didn't do either well enough. As opposed to a company like Compass, which is a similar type of company in the real estate side, I think they really focus on making their agents happy in America, and like that really works. Versus like they're not really building for the end customer, right? They're really building for the agents.
So actually, that's one of the reasons maybe you jump back to the gaming area because you did already something great there, and that was one of the reasons that you choose Fractal as a project, new project.
Yeah. So with gaming, it's like I am a gamer. I know what gamers want. I've been in the space a long time. I'm excited about gaming. So I think it just made a lot more, it makes a lot more sense for me personally.
Got it. Yeah, I do have a completely different question from this direction, but Justin, you talk about this, hedonic treadmill that people are always chasing something, going through this, hamster wheel of always wanting, getting, and getting rid of, and it just goes on and on. And I'm curious, is it possible for someone to get out of this hedonic treadmill before they got to a point where they say, okay, I'm successful now, or I've seen enough. When do you think this "I've seen enough" point is at people's life? Is it at a certain point, or is it different for everyone?
The hedonic treadmill exists for everyone, which is this idea that like wherever you're at, there's always somewhere better to be. It's some part of your mind is always saying like, oh, you could do better. Like so, when I started off in Silicon Valley, I was like, if I could make $1 million, that would be incredible, right? Like that would be amazing. And I blew past that goal, and eventually we sold Twitch, for $970 million. And for me, then it was like I just remember thinking like, oh, I could have done better. Like there's other companies, friends of mine who have started, $10 billion companies or $20 billion companies. Like I didn't do good enough. And obviously from the outside, or even from my goals in the beginning, that's like kind of a ridiculous proposition. But like that's just a proof that like no matter who you are, you can always be looking out and being like, oh, I want to do better. And so the only way to get off the hedonic treadmill is to really just be okay with like realizing that like external happiness or like external things don't drive long-term happiness, right? Like if you get you sell your company for $1 billion, it's not going to make you permanently happy. You're just going to adjust to that, right? Like you're going to adjust to your new circumstances because that's what human beings do. And so, true happiness is really found from within. And the recognition of that is something that I don't think we spend enough time doing in society today.
I guess as you mentioned, after getting out of this treadmill, have you got out of this hedonic treadmill?
I mean, that's always easy to say yes, but like it's hard to know. It's hard to really know. I mean, I think that like now I focus primarily on what am I doing every day that I really enjoy, and if I do things that I enjoy, then like that's a great day. If not, maybe try again better next time. And so tomorrow, like so to me, I think I have released a lot of my external pressure to do better and better.
Got it. And do you think is it okay to still want material things even after you got out of this hedonic treadmill? Do you think there's still some material things that people want, or is it just purely the things that make you happy from within yourself?
Well, of course, it's human nature to want things like in the world, right? To want material stuff. It's not going to make you happy, and achieving it is not going to make you happy, but you can want it. and it's like that's natural, right? So like even fighting against even the idea that you should want to not want things is kind of like a source of potential unhappiness, you know. I think in general, like, you know, people want stuff. That's fine. I want stuff, like, but just not being too attached to like the necessity of fulfilling those needs is probably a healthy place to come from, you know.
Justin also told us about negative visualization, which I love that technique. I started to do that as well, Justin. What is negative visualization? How we can practice that?
I was going to ask you, why don't you explain it? Well, negative visualization is like a stoic practice that I read about that is basically like visualizing bad things happening to you, you know, like something bad, like really putting yourself in the experience of like something bad happening. And what would your experience be like really trying to live what that experience would be like. And I think, you know, when you do that, it's kind of like inoculating yourself against those things, because like things, you know, you're always going to have negative experiences that happen in life. And when they do happen, it's all about how do you react? Like, how are you in that moment? You know, how are you present in that moment? And do you let it like carry you away, or are you just, you know, do you accept like this is my experience? And that doesn't mean like don't do anything to change your experience, but like you accept that it's your experience, you're not thrashing against it, and then you can figure out how do you want to like most effectively change it. And when you you know have these, you know, do this negative visualization, you're just, it's like practice, right? And you realize a couple things. One is it's not the end of the world. Like if bad things happen, that's not the end of the world. That they're going to happen to you. And then the second thing is like you can not thrash against that experience, and you have the ability to like just, you know, be calm in the experience and try to do whatever you need to do to change it.
Also, it is connected with gratitude journal as well, in my opinion, because when you start that negative visualization, you realize that you much a lot. I mean, even if you lose a few things in life, you still have much more things that you can be grateful. And these are all interconnected, I think. Really, one of the habits that I love having, thanks Justin again for that. I write every day in the morning the three things that I am grateful for. Every day it reminds me that we have lots of things to be grateful. So we always desire, and this desire creates some pain. But somehow, when you look at the things you own, you have, it makes you happier, and happier makes your day more productive, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. The
Yeah.
gratitude journal is such a great. It's so great. You know, it's something that I try to do every day.
Awesome. And let's say that, you know, the wanting is, you know, having possessions is not the purpose of life. What do you think it is, Justin, for you? You know, how do you, you know, see goals in life? How do you, you know, determine your goals, and how do you see the purpose of it?
Yeah, I think it's up to each person to define their own purpose. You know, but for me, you know, the way I want to show up is to be a good friend and good family member, a good father, and you know, kind of participate in doing good for the people around me. Um, and like pursue the things that like I enjoy to do every day. You know.
Awesome. And if we were to talk about, you know, the future of the you know, projects that you're doing, but before we do that, you know, how do you see the next 10 years of tech or Web3, or, you know, whatever happens? I think, you know, you have this insights around, you know, seeing through a bunch of, you know, booms and busts throughout, you know, a couple decades. You know, where do you see, you know, in 2020s will happen in the following years?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think Web3 is a big mega trend, and I think it's kind of rewriting the way that the internet works around ownership, which is really exciting. I think if we were creating Twitch today, it'd be a Web3 project. And so, you know, having
Hmm.
the community participate in the governance and ownership of the internet, I think is very interesting, and it's kind of like the future that I want to participate in. So, I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, I think that's probably the one trend that I think is, you know, very fascinating right now.
How about the investing? Because for the last couple years, the valuations went high. There are more experimentations going on in the world, and, you know, I haven't seen that much of a you know, uh, hype in the startup valuations, in the past 15, 20 years. But do you think it's gonna, go up continuously, forever, or do you think there's a, gap that is gonna stop at some point?
I don't know. Like I'm probably not. I'm not. I don't know that I want to make a prediction. I do think that like we're the startup valuations are tied to exit valuations, right? If something's like more valuable at exit, like people are willing to invest more in the beginning. And you've seen this massive increase in growth tech stocks, last year, especially in like a run up in the last like decade, um, as there's been like this low inflation rate environment, like to, today, like sorry, low interest rate environment, and today, like I think that may be changing where we kind of have this inflation happening in the United States, and maybe there's like less interest in and kind of the valuations that are supported in the growth tech stocks are like lower, and so that might affect earlier stage companies downstream from that
Justin,
or
yeah,
upstream,
Justin,
I
also
guess.
you have this growth VC, which is really exciting as well. What type of startups you invest, and how do you make these decisions?
Yeah, we're investing in all kinds of different companies, like a lot of Web3 companies right now. Interested in like climate change companies, some like robotics and AI, some in healthcare, like kind of a mix. Really trying to invest in companies where we see those founders as like they have that special drive to really build something and make a difference in the world in some way. And so like it's all at the early stage. It's all about the people, and we're really just trying to identify who those people are and who do we want to work with. One of the rules I have is like I only want to work with people where when I see them, it puts a smile on my face. And so if I can't, like if it's all, because life is short, you only have so much time to spend with people, and so if I can't, if they don't fulfill that for me, then it's probably not the right investment.
Awesome. And as a founder skill or persona, what kind of things you try to see at founders to be convicted to a business? Of course, a business is important and the market is important, but even if all those things are equal, how would you evaluate founders as their skills?
Yeah, I mean, you're just looking at like what have they done, right? Like, so it's like if they're building technology, it's like have they built anything, and like how fast did they build it, and like are people using it? Do they like it? Those are kind of the things you want to look at when you're looking at technology founders.
Just when you said about this thing that founders who put smile on my face, life is short. I think that's kind of interesting. I was reading a book. There was a quote there: "Journey before destination," and who walked this journey with. This will be the most important thing at the end. In my life, when I'm working with people, that's one thing that I really give importance as well. I mean, it is very difficult to be professional all the time. You want to enjoy with the people that you are working with. That's how it works, in my opinion. When I'm calling him, I should be feeling good. This is very important in my opinion, because also in the Web3 world, I see this people are very welcoming. They are very open. It is kind of like very different community out there, in my opinion. That makes me excited to be in Web3 world as well. What do you think, Justin, about this part?
Yeah, I mean, I love the energy in Web3. It's like people are really excited about what people are building. There's a very participatory feeling. Yeah, it's people are super energized, and that's exciting. It feels like we're back to when we were the early days of Twitch, when we were building streaming and like just discovering what are the atomic units of how people are going to interact on the internet, and people are just really excited to work on that. And so, I feel like that's similar to how it is now.
When I'm talking with my friends, I'm telling like this. Before startups in Turkey, for example, my father was also doing business, but the business plan was different. Like the business mindset was different back then. Like my father's business style is totally different. So when I get into the startup, I was telling my father, and he was getting thinking. I mean, he was having difficulty to understand how we work. When I get into this Web3 startups, I started to feel like someone explaining to me as a Web2 founder how the Web3 world works. Like investment works differently. Getting help, for example, someone wants to build something in the cave world. they just tell the community, and someone from community is doing it for them. Like the style of Web3 startups really interesting to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to add.
it's been fun. It's like it's cool. All the rules are being rewritten right now. Like if you were a young person starting their career, I'd say definitely jump into Web3 right now.
Yeah, totally. It's an exciting world. And Justin, if you were to leave us, your 2 cents on the contents in the books that you wished you learned or consumed when you were early at early age, what kind of things you would turn back to, young Justin and say, you should read this, or you should do this, and things like that.
Sure. There's a book that I really love called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And in the book, it outlines kind of I guess, a set of values that they define as what a conscious company is. And I just think it's a really great book about leadership and the type of values that I would want to have in a company that I started. And I recommend it to all young people when they're starting companies or starting projects, or thinking about how they want to be in the world.
And in terms of habit forming, do you have any content or a book that do you think really help people about that, or maybe an app? Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a book called Atomic Habits I really love, which is a book on habit formation that kind of outlines how you create habits. And then I actually wrote an app with some friends for fun that's called Kin. That's like a habit tracker app that helps people form habits. So you can check that out. It's called at kinhabits.com.
We can share the link
Yeah,
here as well after the podcast.
perfect.
Yeah, that was really exciting to listen all of these from you, because I think I'm following you. I read this 15 commitments of conscious leadership, and that was super helpful for me. The one part was really important in the book for me, especially to understand your feelings. When I practiced that with a coach from 15 commitments of there is a coaching as well they give. Justin, I got a coaching. That moment, I mean, when you start to realize your feelings, it is easier to manage yourself and even the relationships and your company. I guess that part was really important for me from the book. Do you advise anything from the book specific, like a part like this, that you find it most interesting?
There's a part on emotions, which I think that's you reference. It's like that's really powerful. It's just recognizing that the emotions that you have aren't something to be avoided. Emotions are signal, right? Like they're just part of the human experience. And if you can just be with your emotions and not need anything to change and recognize them and talk about them, then you're going to have a much better time managing and kind of like being authentic, showing up in an authentic way in your company. And so that was a big insight to me. It's something where I learned a lot, and I definitely recommend that lesson, right, to everybody.
Thanks so much for joining today. I personally learned a lot of things, and I believe it will be really helpful for the people who are listening to us. And yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye.